Today, as you can see on stage, we have Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, House Speaker Cameron Sexton, and other leaders in the legislature. Notably for you all here, we also have Folashade Abiola Banjak from our outside auditing firm, as well as Myrtle Shamra. They're from Clifton Larson Allen, or CLA, as you may hear us refer to them. We are here today to talk about the interim forensic audit of the Memphis-Shelby County School System, which was requested by the General Assembly and funded by the General Assembly last year. After the legislature did that, the Comptroller's Office issued an extensive RFQ process, and we ended up contracting after a procurement with Clifton Larson Allen, or CLA. CLA began its work in August of 2025. It's important to note that this audit has three parts. The forensic audit specifically covers fiscal years 2022 through 2024. There is an internal controls assessment, which involved review of internal controls, and an IT and cybersecurity section that evaluated risks that currently exist. It is important to note that today's report is an interim report. A final report will be available later this year, but specifically to the forensic audit section, it is only about 25% complete. There's 75% more work to do on the forensic part. So after that preamble, let me say that it is unfortunate, but it is not at all surprising that the work by CLA verified that there are widespread operational failures within the Memphis-Shelby County schools. The failures evaluated so far include more than $1.1 million in waste and abuse, much of it related to contract spending within the school system. Another $1.7 million in spending that is not in compliance with district policies and procedures. It is notable in their work that CLA was not able to locate at least 40% of the I-9 verification forms it tested in regard to personnel in the school system. CLA noted, and you'll see in the audit there are photos of this, they noted that the room containing these files, along with other personally identifiable information, is secured by a curtain instead of a door. In all, the report that you will see today includes 44 deficiencies related to internal controls, 51 deficiencies related to IT systems and cybersecurity, and so far in the 25% complete forensic audit, there are 79 observations. This has, very unfortunately, but perhaps again not surprisingly, been a very challenging engagement. The forensic audit has involved a huge amount of data, over 200 in-person interviews, more than 40 CLA staff working at a time. They have collected a huge amount of data, and auditors have faced delays from the Memphis-Shelby County school systems providing requested information. The auditors have dealt with dysfunctional record keeping with outdated IT systems and obvious fiscal mismanagement. They have dealt with an obvious disregard for policies and procedures within the district. The challenges they have faced have made this work harder, but they have also verified why this audit was necessary. Again, let me say that this is an interim report. It is imperative, and we are calling on them today, it is imperative that CLA have the full cooperation of the Memphis-Shelby County school systems for them to be able to complete this audit. Here is the bottom line, and for me, what the biggest takeaway is from this report. It is clear, and again, no surprise, that there is an absolute culture of apathy and carelessness within the Memphis-Shelby County school systems. There is, at no level, an expectation that things are done right. The Board of Education, the leadership in the school system, does not now and has not ever exhibited an expectation that things are done right. There is a major lack of accountability across the Memphis-Shelby County school systems. Large portions of the forensic audit is not even done yet, but in my opinion as comptroller, this is the worst management of any organization I have seen in my career. I would say, in fact, that it is unprecedented for an organization of this scope and size. I have with me in the room right over here Brian Birkland, who is now Director of Local Government Audit in the Comptroller's Office. Brian, you've been here 45 years, and you have said to me, this is the worst you have seen in your career. This audit outlines a school system that is extremely dysfunctional. Let me give you one example of a contract we found, or CLA found. In the Memphis-Shelby County school systems, they hired a consultant, a mentor principal, to provide mentoring in the school system. We had a situation where they invoiced for 32 days of work in December. Well, you might say, well, December only has 31 days. But, in fact, there are only 13 school days in December because of Christmas break and things like that. Yet they're billing and being compensated for 32 days of work. We have other instances where they're finding many contracts valued at $99,000. It perhaps is just a coincidence that the bid limit is $100,000. We have a lot of curious things going on. 1 out of every 10 students in Tennessee are educated in the Memphis-Shelby County school system. They have an abysmal educational attainment rate. If things are so bad in the business and operational side of the school system, it is easy to understand how that extrapolates to the all-important educational side of the office. In order to expand on this more, I'll ask Folashade Abiola Banjak, who is with CLA, to come down and share more with you.
Good morning. My name is Fola Abiola Banjak, and I lead the Forensics, Litigation, and Investigations practice here at CLA. I'm joined with my colleague, Myrtle Sharma, who is the Managing Principal of the Tennessee office. Today, Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, submitted an interim report prepared at the request of the Tennessee Comptroller of the Treasurer. We reviewed the financial practices, governance, and operations of Memphis-Shelby County schools. The interim report reflects work conducted pursuant to the engagement authorized by the Comptroller and outlined in the engagement letter dated July 28, 2025, as subsequently expanded. The procedures performed to date are part of an ongoing forensic audit designed to evaluate risk, identify potential irregularities, and assess governance, compliance, and financial practices for fiscal years 2022 and through 2024, as well as to evaluate the district's current internal controls environment. As part of this work, CLA has completed the internal controls assessment and the IT cybersecurity risk assessment. These two assessments identified multiple control weaknesses and deficiencies. CLA's forensic audit work is ongoing, as stated by the Comptroller, and includes transactional testing, document review, interviews, and analytical procedures focused on identifying potential fraud, waste, abuse, noncompliance, and other irregularities. The preliminary results from this report have identified potentially more than $1.1 million in waste or abuse attributable to weaknesses in management, oversight, and internal controls. In addition, CLA identified more than 1.7 million in transactions processed that are potentially in violation of district policies and procedures. These represent internal control and documentation deficiencies. It's important to note that our findings, our interim findings, have also observed that with the high level of leadership and staff turnover, coupled with the lack of documented policies and procedures and the erosion of institutional knowledge, they've resulted in a systemic challenge with record keeping and documentation, a challenge that we've faced throughout this engagement. Additionally, CLA conducted a preliminary investigation related to the Whitehaven STEM building matter. That work identified the absence of a formal agreement with the district related to approximately $885,000 of remaining funds in the Whitehaven STEM building account held by School Seed. In sum, CLA will continue its work from a forensic audit perspective. As the comptroller stated earlier, we are only 25% done from the contracts testing, and we have approximately 75% to go. And with that 25% completed, we've identified 1.1 million in contracts that have been classified as waste or abuse. This interim report is intended to inform stakeholders of observations to date and does not represent final conclusions. The final conclusions will be provided in the coming months. In sum, we ask that all questions really are answered in the 322-page report that we've presented. That includes all three volumes, the internal controls volume, the digital assessment, as well as the interim forensic audit. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Randy McNally, Speaker of the Senate and Lieutenant Governor. I just want to say this is one of the worst audit reports that I've seen in my almost 50 years in state government. I think it demonstrates that from the school board to the school management that there's lots of problems, and it's like people don't care about any rules or any accounting procedures that should be done, and it's just a terrible thing that we see. There's, in some instances, some of the companies are refusing to give us data or refusing to give the auditors data. And that certainly is a big red flag to me. And I think if they have nothing to hide, they'd be willing to cooperate. But thank you, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. And look, I think it's important to note, just to emphasize that only 25% of the forensic audit is complete. There's still 75% to go, but there's enough there to be highly concerned with what's been going on, especially when you're looking at the contracts. You know, for example, nearly $2 million in disbursements, wire transfers, bank statements, and payroll and travel stipends have no record keeping at all or oversight. It's also 6% of the contracted vendors did not have a street address, only PO boxes. That's important to evaluate. And multiple contracts had no oversight, no record of purchase orders, unsupported changes for meals and travel expenses, billing for unrealistic workdays, double payments for vacation. Several executive coaching contracts, as was mentioned here, are very concerning as what those look like. And look, I think as you look at this, there was an article, I think last year, where there was a individual who had a contract with Shelby County Schools, and somehow they figured out that they were supposed to have collected tens of thousands of dollars for something they were supposed to provide, but the problem is they never asked for it. They never were part of it. Somehow they got caught up in the process. That money went somewhere else. They started investigating it. They had never received the money. It went somewhere else, and the question is, how did that happen? I think it's been laid out how that happened. It was due to lack of internal controls, lack of internal knowledge. Could be fraud, could be waste, could be abuse. But I think what we have heard for years is how much has been going on through their contracts. And with this only being 25% done, there's still a lot more to go, but it's very concerning where we're at. I think everybody on this stage is wanting to have Memphis economy to be the biggest economy in our state and take on to the levels of what Davidson County has. I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor and the leader and the leader on our side and members and the senators for helping us decrease crime in Memphis. That was a team effort here. This is a team effort here to have a better understanding of this, but it's also a team effort when you're looking at the school system. There should not be a child that is leaving that school that's not proficient in reading and math. And when you have this kind of mismanagement in the financial side of it, we understand now why there's so mismanagement on the expectations of what's being produced from those classrooms. And so we're gonna do our part. We're gonna do our best to right the ship. And we hope that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will join us in this as we try to bring some order and ability back to that process. And so, look, it's not a great day for the school system, but we got more to go. And I'll just say, look, 75% still out there. There's a lot to go, and this only represents 3 years. The forensic audit is only going to represent 3 years, but what has been going on, this has not been going on for just 3 years. This has been going on for decades. And so you can make that determination of what that total value is, but this did not start in 2022. This started a long time ago. We're not blaming one individual, but it's a systematic failure in the process, and that's kind of where we're at. And then I'll turn it over to Chairman Mark White.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker Sexton, very much. My name is Mark White, and I chair the House Education Committee. I have been in the General Assembly now for 17 years. For the last 12 of those years, I've been fortunate enough to chair the Education Committee in the House Chamber. And we in the House and the Senate Education Committee have worked to increase academic standards and accountability in our state's K through 12 schools. We have had much accomplishment. Our nation's report card shows that over the past 10 to 15 years, we have moved Tennessee from 45th, 46th, and 47th among the 50 states in the nation in reading and math proficient. We have now moved the needle down to we're now in the mid-20s of 50 states. So the state has been moving forward. However, Memphis, which is one of the districts that I do represent, the MSCS district has not been moving the needle consistently, and they have stayed around the 25th percentile in reading. And this hurts the city. This hurts the growth. So we have been asking our question, Senator Taylor and I and the leadership behind me, what is the systemic and the root causes of this? Why are we not moving the needle year after year, decade after decade? So I want to thank the leadership behind me, Governor Lee also, for supporting this. And so what we are now in the process of doing, Senator Taylor and I, once this audit report has been released, with the support of the House and Senate leadership, we are now going to pull the legislation that we have proposed, working on this for the past 2 years, which is creating a board of managers for intervention on the school board and move forward with that. We have to, as was stated, 1 out of every 10 students in Tennessee are educated in this one system. The budget is approximately $1.8 to $1.9 billion every year. We must address this, not only for the sake of Tennessee, but for the sake of Memphis, but most of all for the sake of the K through 12 students in our city. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brent Taylor. I'm state senator, and I just realized when Governor McNally was up here. He's been in the legislature almost 50 years, but it took me to show up to finally for him to holler calf rope and decide to retire. So I hope that was not anything I did. I think what this audit shows is that the Memphis-Shelby County school system is about as organized as a $5 bin at the Walmart. And I would just like to highlight one of the things that captured my attention and why I got behind this effort to do this forensic audit, and then also to help pursue the legislation that will hopefully follow this. And by the way, the thing that got my attention was actually it straddles the audit period. As you heard from CLA, the audit period runs from 2022 to 2024. However, in 2018, the Memphis-Shelby County School Board, they bought the Bear campus, which is on Jackson Avenue down in Memphis, and they paid $6 million for this building. They spent $33 million renovating it. And then in 2025, according to a newspaper article, they sold that building for $5 million. After buying it for $6 million, spending $33 million on it, and then selling it for $1 million less than they bought it for. Interestingly enough, they sold it to an organization called New Day, Tennessee, and the president of New Day, Tennessee is a former school board member. And it was sold as to New Day, and they were the only bidder on the property. It's these types of examples of why this audit was necessary. And the other thing that caught my attention from the audit was that the school system has a computer program that they manage a lot of contract payments and the monitoring and management of these contracts. And as staff members for MSCS came and went from the district, they never removed them from access to those computers. And much like the example you heard Speaker Sexton mention, one of the ways that that could have happened is that people that weren't even in the district any longer still had access to the computer program where they could have created a fake company, they could have put in a contract, they could have sent in invoices and then paid those invoices all from outside the district. And it'll be interesting to see if that actually happened. You know, I believe, I had dinner last night with Congressman Tim Burchett, who used to be in the state Senate. And I was talking to him about this, and I think it would be interesting if we shared the audit results when they're done with Congressman Burchett, who is chairman of the DOJ committee in Washington, just to see how many federal dollars come under the heading of waste, fraud, and abuse. And so I hope we will do that. Crime and education have been the two things that have held Memphis back. And I want to thank the people that are on this stage and others who have focused on Memphis to make Memphis matter. And the two things that have been holding us back are crime and education. And with Speaker Sexton's leadership and Lieutenant Governor McNally's leadership, President Trump sent the Memphis Safe Task Force to Memphis, literally have cut crime in half. The president was in Memphis just last week, where he talked about how safe Memphis is. The other thing that's been holding us back has been education. This is the first step in solving our education issue in Memphis. And if we can solve crime and we can solve education in our community, there is no reason that Memphis can't be the next Southern IT city. We can become a first name city like Dallas, Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville. It needs to be Memphis next. This is the first step toward that. And I will end where I began, and that is that this audit, again, shows the level of mismanagement down in Memphis by MSCS, that had they been leading the Israelites out of Egypt instead of Moses, they would have ended up in a cornfield somewhere in Idaho. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have time for brief questions, but only about 5 minutes. I want to start with some Memphis folks first. Bonnie, we can start with you.
Yeah, Imani Williams with Action News 5. So does this audit clear the way for a state oversight committee over that school board here in Memphis?
Yes, this was the first step. Representative White and I said last year when we passed our respective bills out of the House and Senate, they didn't match. We thought at that time, rather than force those two bills together, that we would wait until the audit results came in. And that's where we are today. So the next step will be to to move that legislation. It'll wind up in conference committee where we will hammer out the differences between the House version and the Senate version. But I want to make one important thing, and those of you in the media have couched this as a state takeover of the school system. Keep in mind that this is not a state takeover, and I've heard the comparisons to the Achievement School District. This is not the Achievement School District. The Achievement School District was the state taking over the worst performing schools. This is completely different. This is the state authorizing a local intervention that will be made up of a board of managers who will be Memphians. They will be appointed by Speaker Sexton and Lieutenant Governor McNally and Governor Lee. They will be Memphians, and they will be intervening to try to turn our school system around. And I think that's an important distinction. It's a state authorizing a local intervention, not a state takeover. Martin, did you have anything to add?
Box 13, you-
Hi, Kayla Solomon, Box 13. This might be a better question for Comptroller Howard. I know we're only about 25% through, the findings of this audit, but at the end, when all the results are in, what action could the Comptroller's office take if needed?
Thank you for the question. Again, the audit's made up of three parts: an internal controls review, which is complete, an IT and cybersecurity review, which is complete, and they're 25% way through the forensic audit part. What they have already found in just the 25% that they have completed is astounding. It's abusive to the taxpayer. It shows complete disregard for students and parents and taxpayers in Shelby County. And depending on what is found, whether it is waste or abuse or potentially fraud, if anything rises to the level that's prosecutable, we'll work with the proper officials, hopefully the United States Attorney in particular, in pursuing those matters.
Melissa, do you have a question?
Repeatedly, as just mentioned, 25% of the way through. Is it best practice for a state audit to provide results 25% through? And is it appropriate sort of strategy to make legislative changes this session when there's 75% audit to go?
Well, I would say number one, if we had had the necessary cooperation from the Memphis-Shelby County school systems, we'd be a lot more than 25% through and perhaps would be done. Whether you're citing the level of cooperation or the antiquated IT system or the very dysfunctional record keeping, as I said, this has been a very challenging engagement for CLA, which is a nationwide, very experienced audit firm. I think it is very appropriate. You just take what we have seen so far. Let me reiterate. 44 deficiencies related to internal controls, 51 related to IT and cybersecurity, and 79 so far in 25% of the forensic audit. To me, that seems very actionable and probably overdue for action.
Quick follow-up. When you say lack of cooperation from the district, can you be a little more specific about what that looks like? Is it refusing to meet with auditors? Is it just records keeping issues? Can you outline a little what that means?
I think it's all of the above. I just think, especially I cited when they started their work in August, they were not met with open arms. They were met with trepidation and resistance. I think CLA was able to break through some of that. Again, conducted over 200 in-person interviews, having over 40 staff members on the ground at any given time. But I think it's all of the above, and that's why I stress, in order to be able to finish out this forensic part of the audit, it is going to be inherent on the Memphis-Shelby County school system to fully cooperate so that they can deliver an on-time product for the final report.
Let me touch on that. It's an interesting question, because you surmise that 100% would lead you to a different result, which it's not going to. You're at 25%. You know what direction that's going. It is such a failure that at some point, do you need any more information to understand what needs to happen, right? How much more fraud, waste, and abuse? We know it's coming. We know it's going to increase. They haven't looked at all the contracts yet, and we have an understanding of what those look like and how abysmal they are, and record keeping and everything else without invoices and what that looks like. That doesn't even take into account the potential for nepotism and other things that's been going on to help family members and others that everybody in Shelby County has said it's been going on for decades. And so it gets to a point where you're like, we've seen enough. They're going to continue because we're going to continue because we need to continue if we're going to bring criminal charges if something comes up to that level. And that's why you complete the audit. And so that's the direction that we're moving in. But you also have to remember that they're still functioning today, and they're still probably doing the same practices today that they were doing 3 years ago. They might have changed a little bit because the auditor's in there and they don't want to get caught. So there is a systematic failure. It's continuing to happen. And it needs to change quickly, and that's what I hope that we get to do. We'll get to that capability. I appreciate Lieutenant Governor's leadership on this in the Senate and the House members, and then Chairman White and Senator Taylor, because there's no place for this. And so if we allow this to continue to go on for another year, this practice, there's kids who are not getting what they need. The school system is not functioning well, and there's more waste, fraud, and abuse that's going to continue to happen. So 25% is enough for me to make my decision on what we need to do. I was there before you had the audit, so I already knew what I was going to do when you talk to enough people in Shelby County. They can tell you exactly what's happening. And so that's where we are. Whether it's 25%, 100%, I think we need to move.
Last question from Brett.
Thanks, Laura, Christina, and Lucia, thanks for having us. For auditors at CLA, being 25% of the way through with this audit, I'm curious if that is also 25% through the audit plan, what you were expecting to look for, or if some of these findings reflect things that you investigated more than you anticipated.
I would encourage everyone to read the report. It's 322 pages. Specifically, the forensic report is 196 pages. In reference to the percentage completion, it really is in reference to largely the contracts work that has to take place, but it's every section that we took care of, along with the percentage complete of each section of the scope of work, is addressed in the report.
And a quick follow-up on that, does the contract review in your process include review of subcontractors that might be attached to these contracts, or is that outside of the scope of the scripted audit?
All areas and all elements in which we took for the scope of work were provided by the comptroller, and they're all articulated in the report. We really want to encourage everyone to read it fully, because it will give you enough context as to what it is that we did, our process, the scope of work, as well as our methodology, and how we were able to come to our findings.
All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you all.